Welcome to this month's virtual owners meetup. This session will also be recorded and shared for you to view at your convenience. I'm Maddie Bourgeois, the Director of Communications and a spokesperson for RVshare, and I will be today's host. Today's meetup is all about the RV rental industry. The landscape is always changing and owners are feeling a shift in renter preferences and behavior. Ahead of the busy season, how can you as owners best prepare? After a few very successful years for RV rentals, what's next? I'm joined by RVshare CEO John Gray, who is here today to chat about the RV industry at large and what owners can expect from today's busy season or this year's busy season. If you have any questions, please submit them to the Q&A box and we'll get to some at the end of the webinar. But John, hi there, welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Maddie. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
So John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been working in travel for about 20 years now. I've started with a company called Vrbo, where basically we ran a business very similar to RVshare, but bringing vacation rentals or houses that were available for rent online and available to rent to renters. Spent about 13 years there, kind of working in analytics, marketing, and then serving as the general manager over several businesses all over the world. After that, I came to RVshare, and the reason I came to RVshare was I thought it was a very similar market in that it had a way of taking an asset that people already had and helping them turn it into a second source of income by sending people on trips and allowing them to make great memories. And in the RV business, we actually have an even higher satisfaction rate than we did in the vacation rental business. And the people who rent out their RVs are able to offset a larger portion of their investment in the RV business. So I thought it was a really good business. At the time, it was a much smaller business. And this was about 5 years ago. And so joined the company and in that time have been, pretty focused on helping to make RVing and RV sharing a mainstream category of travel. The other things about me, I guess, as I think about work, the thing that I am most excited about at work is that we get to, and all of us owners and the employees of RVshare get to work together to send people on some of the best memories they'll ever have, which are trips with their families and the groups that are most important to them. So that's kind of a big part of the why for me. Let's see what else. I live in Austin. It's cold and rainy here today. Have 3 kids and a wife, and I think that's about it.
Cool. So let's start by looking back at the last few years in the RV rental business. Since early 2020, things have changed drastically for the industry, and you saw that firsthand. So can you share your experience with the industry?
Yeah, so high level, I mean, this is a business that was growing and doing quite well. So RVshare, turns 10 later this year. We have been, had been a business that was growing quite quickly leading into the pandemic. Then, as I'm sure most people on this call remember with COVID, if you have small businesses and things like that, all of our bookings stopped. All of your bookings for your RVs stopped. And we were pretty freaked out about it. Then, a couple months later, they came back with a vengeance, kind of more bookings than we've ever seen. And then, have kind of continued to grow from there. So, when I look at this business, I still see us as being in the fairly early stages of making RV sharing a mainstream category of travel. I think that what we saw over the pandemic was a bit of where we will go ultimately in terms of the consideration set, but that's not going to happen all the time. So I do think that was kind of a one-off weird thing that showcased our category and brought in a bunch of people who were probably new to the category and added to the consideration set of people who go RVing. But what we're seeing now is more of a regression back to the traditional RV travelers, the nuclear families who are wanting to go on a road trip over the summer. Our business, as I'm sure most of is pretty largely during the summer. So Memorial Day to Labor Day are our biggest booking times, and we expect to see more of a return to the traditional season as we move away from the extended school calendars and things like that we saw over the pandemic.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing that the pandemic brought to us is just overall consideration and awareness. So although it's going back to nuclear families and some of those true RVers who have interest in RVing, the option is a lot greater to those who are interested in trying out this type of trip. And we're seeing that skew younger. And we can talk more about that in a minute. But that does bring us to today. And we just ended the first quarter of the year and we're looking ahead to the busy season. So what is the current temperature of the RV rental industry?
Yeah, so I mean, look, that's a really complicated question. So I'd say for the RV industry as a whole, what we're seeing is just a huge reduction in demand to buy new RVs. I look at the RVIA data every month, and they're down more than 50% year on year in terms of how many RVs are being sold. So, what that is creating is a less liquid marketplace for the sale of RVs. That'll go through to the secondary markets too. So it'll be harder to sell used RVs. And I think that, creates a great opportunity for people who may not have considered renting out their RV before to come in and start renting out their RV. If you're somebody who's an owner who has an RV on the platform and wants to expand to have more RVs on our platform, which is not a huge part of our business. Most of our business today is still people who have one RV, but we're starting to see a larger demographic shift of people who are buying a second and third RV and renting them through the platform as well. That's still, under 20%, but it is a expanding piece of the pie here. And it's a great time to buy an RV relative to where it's been in the last couple of years. The selection is greater, the prices are lower than they've been in the past few years. So I think that's the kind of buy side of the RV market, or the supply side of the RV market. In terms of demand, for the kind of unnatural shift that we saw with people coming to RVing during the pandemic, because physical proximity was very important to them, having their own space, their own bathrooms, kitchens, all of those things which are objectively good anytime, were just extra important in the light of the pandemic. We've kind of moved away from that a little bit, and more to, people want to go back to Europe. People haven't been able to travel to places. So there are kind of some pent up demand for types of travel that that have been kind of off the board for the last few years. So we're seeing a little bit of that in terms of a regression of demand. Our demand is still growing, even growing from the, previous years. In terms of our revenue from bookings is, up and growing nicely relative to last year, which is even more than it was during the pandemic. So, the growth rate has obviously slowed, but we're still driving more bookings than we were during, or, more revenue from bookings than we were during the pandemic.
Good, that's positive to hear. So, I think there's a lot of economical concerns and a potential recession on the horizon. How do you see the RV rental industry faring if that were to happen?
So it's hard to say, right? But I think usually in recessions, and I've been in travel kind of since the recovery from 9/11 through the financial crisis of 2008, and then, the COVID one, which was certainly the weirdest of the three. And what I'd say about it is, typically in recessions, the things that do really well are domestic, drive to, and value, right? So people want to not travel internationally because plane tickets are expensive, drive to, obviously, to the plane ticket point, and value based. So people are going to want to get more for their money. They're going to want to take longer trips where the cost per day comes down because they're booking a week instead of 4 days, things of that nature. That's what I expect we would see in a constrained demand environment, like a recession, where you have low consumer confidence and low consumer intent. I think you'd see, RVing and RV sharing fare better than luxury travel categories, but not necessarily fare all that good in absolutes, given the fact that there's just less people wanting to travel.
So when looking at the data for this year, Where are we seeing high demand for RV rentals, and who is renting?
So if you look at demand for RV rentals, there's a pretty good rule on this, which is that if it's a large metropolitan area in the Southwest, it's a top market, right? So Denver, Salt Lake City, Phoenix, Southern California, those always pop out as big markets. The few that are outside of the Southwest that are top markets for us are Tampa, Dallas, and Houston. Um, you see a seasonal shift on this in that Chicago pops up as a top market over the summer. You have Traverse City, Michigan pops up as a top market over the summer. So it does shift around a little bit. Our fastest growing market for much of last year was Anchorage, Alaska. So, you see there's different spots here and there, but largely speaking, long season is good. So warm most of the year, and Southwest, where typically there's a lot of national parks, that sort of thing. Our top destinations are always the kind of big name national parks. Biggest one last year was Grand Canyon. We also do a lot of trips to Yellowstone, Yosemite, all of the large national parks. We're seeing a lot more event type booking, so festivals, family reunions, stuff like that. There's a lot of more RVs booked for that than there has been in the past. And Maddie, what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, and then who do we see traveling and taking these trips, especially this summer?
So it's still typically nuclear family. I think when I came into this business, I thought the demographic was probably a little bit older. It isn't. It's normally a nuclear family that's, a couple of parents, a couple of kids going out on a road trip. It's typically a long weekend or a week-long trip. Those are the average sizes or the two type of profiles of trips we do. We're seeing a lot more delivered RVs these days. Over half of the bookings now that are going to towables are for delivery, and that's something that I think has been very different in the last few years.
Yeah, that's a good point. This conversation relates to a question we had in our Q&A from Ruth about how popular RVshare is in the Mid-Atlantic, particular Virginia and Maryland.
Yeah, I don't have that data at the tip of my fingers. I will tell you that it's not, there's no top 20 markets in the Mid-Atlantic for us, but you have to remember when I talk about top markets, that's the amount of bookings that happen in that area. So that's a function of supply and demand. If we don't have that much supply in the Mid-Atlantic, which we don't relative to other areas of the country, you might do really well posting your RV in that area because of the fact that we might be underserving the demand just by not having enough supply.
Yeah, and I think related to your other point of events and family reunions and state parks and staying closer to home, that could happen anywhere in the US. So looking at how you can service those types of where those people are going to camp at different campgrounds, state parks, or maybe local events, RVs are always needed at those types of places. So what about the type of RV? We got a lot of questions about people wanting to know exactly what does the most bookings on our site, or what attracts the most renters, and how they can bring in the most dollars based on the type of RV.
Yeah, so the type of RVs that book the best on our site are Class Cs, which I think most of you who are owners know are the ones that are most similar to like a U-Haul truck. That's how we explain it to renters all the time. And those are the ones that book the most on the drivable side, and then travel trailers book the best on the towable side. It's not really that close after those. That's where most of the bookings are taking place. RVs that are newer book better than RVs that are older. They all book pretty well for the first 4 years. Then after that, you start to see bookings fall off per unit. Then the other things that you can control as an owner are having a listing that is well written with good pictures and responding very quickly when people reach out. Like a lot of it is what your RV looks like. A lot of it is how well you treat the customers from a customer service perspective on the renter side. And this is one of my favorite things about this business is it has pretty perfect incentive alignment. We make money when you as owners make money, and we make money because somebody goes on a trip and has a great time. So the incentive alignment of that is really good. So everything we want to do is drive bookings to you so that you can serve them well from the renter perspective, and we can all make some money doing that. And the ways that we've seen that pop out are more on the service side than on what the RV is. Like if you get getting one feature different RV to RV, like this one has granite countertops and this one doesn't. That's not what's driving the bookings difference here. It's responsiveness first. It's then the listing quality and, third-party reviews, things like that further down.
Yeah,
there's a lot less brand loyalty than people think. I think a lot of people think there's a ton of brand loyalty outside of people who are specifically looking for a Sprinter van or an Airstream. There's really very little brand loyalty in terms of what renters are looking for.
Yeah, I think reviews are a big one. And as you mentioned, as well as just understanding the layout of your model and knowing how many it sleeps. Of course, like it may say it sleeps 7, but does that mean I have to put somebody on the table and the pull-out couch and the bunk room? So being more transparent on sleeping arrangements, I think, is an easier way to make a decision about the RV they want to rent. And you touched on this a bit, but when it comes to our delivery offering that a majority of our owners do offer, how has that changed in the last few years and why is it important today?
Yeah, I think a lot of people want the experience of being out at a campground, of cooking s'mores around a campfire, of looking up at the stars, of all of the things that so many of us love about RVing. And a lot of people don't want to drive the RV because they're scared of it. They're like, this is the biggest vehicle I've ever driven. I don't want to drive this. I don't want to be trusted carrying my family around in a vehicle that's significantly bigger than my Prius or whatever it is that I drive at home. So I just want the RV delivered and set up for me. And it was an insight, that we kind of had when we were looking at this business before I joined, from some research we had done. And we really leaned into making that available on the site, making it clear to renters that that was an option they had to get outside and experience what everything that RVing has to offer without having to drive it or without having to tow it. And that, I think, is the use case for why people want delivery. Typically, they're quite willing to pay for it. They know that that you as the owner are putting in a lot of effort to make the delivery and all those types of things. And it's just a really great experience. I'll give an example just from my personal use of it. We rented a fifth wheel and had it delivered. We don't have a car that'll carry a fifth wheel, so we had it delivered. My wife and I are sleeping at one end. The kids are in a bunk room that's 25 feet away. It was fantastic. It was just a wonderful time. And, everybody kind of had their own space. I mean, a fifth wheel is wonderful for a family to stay in, but you have to have a pretty specific truck to carry it with. And I don't think most people have that, unless it's their RV, right? So that's where delivery kind of came from an insight perspective and what we're seeing with it. And like I said, now over half of our bookings to towable inventory are through deliveries. And it is something we constantly hear talked about from renters as something they really enjoy.
Yeah, and I think another point to that is it reduces damages because they're not maneuvering the RV. So a lot of times on the back end, when the rental's all wrapped up, said and done, everybody can walk away happy because there's usually no damages to report because it's just an easier experience on both parties. So we have a lot of new folks joining us today who may be thinking about renting their RV. So what would you tell them and why should they seriously consider it?
I mean, if you have an RV and you're using it like most people for 5 weeks or less per year, you can offset a very large chunk of the cost you're incurring by having an RV by renting it out. I mean, that's the kind of simple fact of the matter. About half of the people who rent out on our platform cover all of their ownership costs by renting it out. So, if you list your RV, you make it available all the time, you price it, or not all the time, but when you're not using it, you price it well, and you are responsive when you get requests to book. you can make a pretty good amount of money renting out RVs. And that's the most compelling reason to do this. I think, there's other reasons. You get to kind of share something that is important to you, your RV, with people who are using it to make great family memories. I think that's something that's pretty cool. It's, I would say, an ancillary business benefit next to the money, but nonetheless an important one.
Agree. So for those who have been on the platform for a while now and might be experiencing fewer bookings this year, or maybe haven't just seen an influx yet, what are your thoughts on attracting more renters, and what can owners do to increase their bookings?
Yeah, I mentioned well, first, and there was a couple of questions in the Q&A that were talking about what do bookings look like. So bookings are up year on year. Like I said, the number we share is a revenue from bookings number. That's the only one that we share. That number's up year on year. And we expect that to continue to grow as we get closer to the season. Our read of the economic data that everyone's seeing is that you're going to see people take less expensive vacations this summer, and that they're going to book them later. Typically, people still travel in a recession, and they travel when when there's economic uncertainty, and they just don't travel as aggressively or as expensively. So we expect that to kind of be the case. We expect bookings to come in a bit later than they have in the past. We'll see, and that's a guess like anyone else has, but it's a fairly educated guess based on what we've seen previously in economic situations like these. But we saw good bookings through spring break. We're seeing pretty good bookings through Easter, and we kind of expect that to continue. Oh, and things that you can do to drive more bookings. Sorry. So the things you can do to drive more bookings, I mentioned this earlier, and I will kind of continue to harp on these throughout, and have for since I've been here. But making really good listings that make it really easy for a renter to see, okay, what's this RV going to be like? What's the floor plan? How many does it sleep? I want to see good pictures of it. It doesn't hurt to show good pictures of it kind of in action, out in a really cool place, which is where they're going to try to take it, and they can help kind of imagine themselves in it that way. Being responsive to people when they ask questions, when they send quotes, things like that is really, really important. Calendar up to date, all of those things we want as a group. And again, I'll say this probably a few times, but this is a partnership. This only works if, the owners, you guys, provide a great experience on the ground to the renters who are taking the RVs. If we're able to bring renters into the door into the first place, I mean, that's how it works together. So, all of that, in order for it to work, it's got to be as similar to booking a hotel or a rental car as we can make it. We don't want people to choose a different vacation type because it's hard. We want it to be really easy to book an RV. So that's what we spend most of our time doing, is trying to improve the quality of the listings, improve the relevance of the sort so that people can quickly find an RV that meets their needs and book it as quickly as possible. And we can't do that without really good responsiveness, without up-to-date calendars, and without high quality listings. So those are the biggest things that I see owners being able to do to help drive more bookings.
Great, that was helpful. So there's a lot of questions about additional fees for services and why RVshare takes a cut of those fees. Can you explain to the audience the company's thinking behind that?
Sure. So this is one that is not a new concern for me. It was a concern at the company I worked at before this. It's a concern at companies I've consulted, been on boards of. The reality of it is, and look, if you've called into this call and you're interested in listening to what we have to say and interested in kind of furthering the partnership we have together, you're probably not one of the people I'm going to describe here. So just kind of know that. But what happens when you don't charge a fee on all of the commerce that's going through the marketplace is people will price things in such a way where it'll be $1 to book, and all the additional fees will come in later because you don't have to pay a fee on those. So the economically rational thing for you to do would be to put as much into additional fees as you can, and very little into base fees. That is a terrible experience for customers on the renter side, because they will, maybe they find an RV and they're like, "Ooh, this RV is $1 per night," and they go to book it, and then there's all of these additional fees that make it significantly more than that. It's a bad user experience. Not only that, it keeps it to where we are not able to, make the amount of money we expected to make by driving a booking. And it's important to note too that when we drive bookings, we are doing that by spending money on marketing, by spending money on technical resources that are, building a website that, continues to evolve and get better at driving bookings. And, all of the support that we do, 24/7 support, 24/7 roadside, all of that goes into it. We spend tens of millions of dollars per year marketing the business, and, in the interest of driving bookings. So we're not, throwing off a massive chunk of profit, and we're just increasing fees so we make more money or anything. All of that's getting invested back into the business. And so it's a bit of a balancing act on that side to begin with. And when you combine that with the fact that we have to provide a really good offering to renters, and throwing the additional fees on top just confuses that, we've stayed clear of it. Now, this is something that I've heard from owners for quite a while, and it's something that I will continue to listen to and see if there are elements that we can carve out where it makes sense, probably post-booking to look at things. I mean, I'm not interested in us making a take off of things that we haven't done anything to earn, obviously. But I also have to make sure the marketplace operates efficiently. And the way you do that is you kind of lump everything together into a total cost. So
Right.
Realize that's a lot of context there, but that's the thinking on it. That's why we do it. I'll say too that the way we do it is similar to the way other similar marketplaces handle it. And I'd certainly be open for other ideas, but that's kind of, as it sits today, how it has to work.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, John. And I think it is important to share that it's a marketplace standard. So any marketplace, including Amazon, has these kind of standards, and it's just to keep the health of the marketplace. And so on that note, with like trust and security of marketplaces, what does RVshare do to vet renters up front and make sure that we're only, offering secure renters to our owners, so both parties are protected?
So, I mean, the biggest thing on this that we do is we do ID verification at the beginning. That is something we've evolved over time. We have some things that are, we obviously talk about ID verification. You guys see that. We also have a bunch of back-end fraud checks that, are proprietary in terms of how we do them, but it's a multi-step process before a renter is able to take an RV. We also are ensuring that they have protection products in place when they take the RV, to hopefully minimize those risks for owners. Obviously, if you're renting an RV, there's some risk involved in that, and sometimes bad things can happen. When those do, we try to do our best to make sure that the owner comes out of it feeling good, and the renter as well, right? So that's kind of the way we've approached that. I will say, and it's important to note this too, it's very rare that fraud happens in our marketplace. Does it happen? Absolutely, it happens. And if it happens once, that's too many times, and we seek to make it happen less than that. But it is something that is very rare, and that we spend a really significant amount of technical resources and vendors and checks and things like that in place to prevent.
Great. So now we're going to move into our Q&A portion of the webinar. So if you have a question, please submit it. We're going to start with some questions that were previously submitted when people signed up. So are any partnerships being planned with branded campgrounds, so Sun Outdoors, KOA, et cetera, that would allow easy long-term RV vacation rentals on those campgrounds?
So I don't, just as a rule throughout my entire career, I don't comment on potential partnerships, and we don't have any to announce at present on that. But that is a good idea, and it's something that we have looked at and hope to move forward at some point.
All right, next question. Is the tiny house or container home movement taking away people from the camping RV scene?
I don't think so. We took a pretty hard look at tiny homes a couple of years ago, just because we wanted to understand the fascination with them. And it has a pretty small, but very loyal fan base. And that's pretty much what we saw. Um, the thing about tiny homes is they're really hard to move. So I don't think they really sub for RVs all that often. They may sub for mobile homes and things like that people might live in longer term, but I based on what we saw, I don't see them as a good substitute for an RV.
So next one is a product request. Can your application provide an indication that check-in and checkout times are in a range rather than the exact time, depending on the renter's plans?
I'm not sure I understand that. Just like a variable check-in and checkout time?
Yeah, I think it makes sense actually, because right now, product you only can do to pick up your RV is at 10 a.m. to drop it off at 3. But maybe it's like you can pick it up anytime between 10 and 3.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, me too.
And you see that now on a lot of hotel websites, they will let you select a check-in time. So I think that's a good idea.
How do you predict rising interest rates to affect the rental industry?
So I think high level, they're good for supply, probably also good for demand, but not, and I mean this from the perspective of RVshare in the marketplace. I think rising interest rates are just another thing that hurts liquidity in the sale market for RVs. I think RVs are financed over a fairly long period of time, as many of you know. So your payments go up pretty significantly if interest rates go up. So that probably causes less people to be in the addressable market for buying an RV. It also probably causes less people to be in the market to be buying a used RV, which I think drives more supply to wanting to rent out. That seems like the economically rational play there. And then on the demand side, I think people who can't afford to buy an RV are great customers for somebody who would want to rent an RV. So I think it's probably good. I think a rising interest rate environment is probably good for both sides of our equation, kind of similarly to the recession thing, which is anytime people are less ambitious with their kind of international travel aspirations, that's generally good for a domestic drive-to travel company. And I think it's kind of the same with rising interest rates.
We had a lot of questions about the RVshare app and what type of improvements are coming up down the road. And then also if we have plans for an Android app.
So we would love to have an Android app. It is just a matter of prioritization and money. And, this is one we talked about recently, and we decided to continue spending more money on driving bookings today through the core website and the iOS app. It's something we will have. It's something that our team is really excited to build, and it will happen. It's just not something that we have a date on yet, and it's not super near term. On the iOS app, we will continue to evolve the iOS app over time and make it more user-friendly, make it a more native experience. We have a pretty good user base for that app now, and it's, as you guys have seen since we rolled it out, it's been making iterative improvements over time. One thing that's interesting about our app is that renters who download the app, and I think a little bit of this is self-fulfilling, but they experience the website a bit differently than people who come in on the desktop version or the mobile web version. And they are far more likely to convert. I mean, or almost an order of magnitude more likely to convert than people who are coming through the mobile web version. So that's an exciting thing as we continue to grow the app.
So moving on to fleet owners. So we have a question about, curious to hear how RVshare is growing to serve small fleet owners, so someone who has maybe 3 to 5 RVs.
As we think about that, this is something that I've expected to happen in this industry over time, is that more people, would start renting out one RV. They're like, well, I'm already spending some time on this and I'm making some money. Why don't I expand my operation to add 2 or 3 RVs? we've talked to a number of people in that kind of profile, and the biggest thing they've told us that they need help with is financing. So that's something that we are working with finance partners on to try to help do, because we are in a spot where we can help provide data that would make it easier for someone to to underwrite a loan for you to buy a second, third, fourth, fifth RV, because we know how often it can get booked out, and we know how much money you're likely to be able to drive in bookings off of it. So that is kind of the first thing. Remember, these small fleets are great for our marketplace because we have pretty professional suppliers. If you're taking care of more than one RV, you're probably taking this pretty seriously and spending some real time on it. And they're typically in markets where we like to have additional supply. So it's great for us, and we definitely want to help see that part of the marketplace grow over time.
Yeah, we had a question in the live chat about what's the percentage of owners that own one RV or own multiple?
Yeah, I tried to answer that one earlier, but it's about 20%. So I saw that question in the live chat. Okay. And I tried to weave it into another answer, but it's about 20% of our owners are people who own more than one RV.
Okay. Next question.
Let me say that differently. About 20% of our RVs are owned by an owner who has more than one.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Interested in how much RV supply is available for renters this year versus prior years?
Yep, it's up kind of in line. It's probably grown a little bit faster than demand has grown, but roughly in line with demand. And when I'm talking about demand, again, I'm talking about revenue from bookings.
All right. And then have bookings per owner gone up, or are there more owners now booking per owners have dropped? So sorry, that was worded a little weird, but
it's basically the ratio between the two, it sounds like, which is have we added a bunch of supply such that we're growing bookings by slower than we're growing supply by? The answer is not really. The number of bookings per owner is going to be slightly up year on year right now.
Okay. A few people mentioned in the Q&A, but that they have full-time jobs and other responsibilities that hinder them for providing maybe a great experience doing delivery. Do you ever have anyone that asks for, or maybe that we already deal with, and doing bookings like with a management company, so using somebody to manage their bookings?
So look, I think this is a fabulous idea. And again, nothing to like specifically announce on this. I will tell you that I have a pretty firm belief that RVshare shouldn't be the management company, right? But the management company should exist. I don't want to put us in a spot where we're in competition to drive bookings to units that we manage with you who's managing your booking yourself. Like, that's not how I believe the marketplace should work. But I do think that there is a great convenience to owners that could be added with a management company that's able to check in and check out your RV, make sure it's ready to go, washed and emptied with the fuel tanks full and everything like that going into a trip. I think that's a huge value. I think somebody will capitalize on it, and we will certainly be here to partner with that person or set of people as they look to build that business. I do think it's a good idea. I do think it will exist as this market continues to grow.
Yeah, I agree. And we've seen that professionalization a lot in other comparable markets, like the vacation rental market. There's property managers for vacation rentals. I think that's a great idea for RVs. We actually have some blog content on rvshare.com/blog about consignment and RV rental management. So if you want more information, you could always check that out.
And there are some folks out there who are doing this already, but it is what I would describe as a very early stage of where I think it can go.
Correct. Next question is, what does our average owner make per year in rental income?
Boy, I do not have that one off the top of my head. Maddie, I feel like we know that. What is the number?
Yeah, it's about 16 to 20K is on average. And again, that's running across, every type of RV make and model. So really depending on what you have, that's the average, but we could look at the averages based on each RV type. And I don't have those in front of me.
But generally speaking, the more your RV cost to purchase, with the exception of fifth wheels, because fifth wheels demand is largely delivery, right? So there's a bit less demand for fifth wheels because they have to be delivered in most cases. Largely speaking, the more you paid for your RV, the more you're going to make renting it out. I mean, I'd say that's a fairly good rule of thumb.
This question is a little bit more about kind of our process. So why do we take the renter's money before they are verified? And I'm not positive that's even correct.
I think they're speaking to ID verification, and purely because ID verification is something that can be done off platform. Bluntly, there are people who are at various levels of technical sophistication, and something like ID verification is a significantly more complicated process than is putting in a credit card number. So what we do is we accept the payment from the renter ahead of time. We do the ID verification after. If for some reason the ID verification fails, we will call and actually walk the renter through the process of doing the ID verification, such that we can, hopefully get them through that and preserve the booking for the owner. So that's why we do it that way. If ID verification was seamless, like, when we're all being run by AI or something like that, and your computer can just scan your retina and know exactly who you are, then we of course would have verification ahead of conversion. But it's enough of a clunky process today that we've put it post conversion to try to preserve as many of the bookings as we can.
Okay. So this one you've touched on a few times, but doesn't hurt to kind of touch on it once more. How can owners make their listings more attractive and also rank better in sort?
Many of you now can probably guess what I'm going to say, but first thing is responsiveness. If someone is reaching out to you with a question about the RV, or they want to book it a day or a specific set of days or something like that, how quickly you respond to them is very important. It's important in the sort. It's important in providing a great experience. The number and quality of reviews you have is important. So if somebody tells you what a great trip they had renting your RV, say, cool, can you write a review for me? And that way you'll start to build up high quality reviews. That helps. Great pictures help in sort and in just overall conversion. And then also a really well worded, clear description of the RV that you're listing.
So the next question is, have you ever considered this, and what are your thoughts on reducing rental fees proportionally to the length of time the RV is rented? So, and I think they're meaning commission, so like 25% for up to 7 days, 20% for 14 days, etc.
I don't think that's a bad idea. We do charge lower percentage commissions based on the length of trip to the traveler. So on the service fee side of things. So I mean, I do think that's something that makes sense. We've kind of gone a different way with that, which is that the more overall bookings you drive through RVshare, that's the thing that helps to regulate the commission price or the commission percentage that you pay, as opposed to doing it on a booking by booking basis. But I mean, I think it's another way you could look at it for sure.
So last question in the Q&A, is there a way to set up payouts to go to two separate pays, like a 60/40 separate bank accounts with separate bank holders? And how would that work with RVshare tax docs? If you have the answer to that one, I know it's a little in the weeds.
I am neither an accountant. Yeah, I can't answer that. I don't know. I mean, look, I'll tell you what we are committed to is being as flexible as we possibly can be in the types of payments we accept and in how we make payments available to you as an owner. Like that's something we obviously want to do. Again, this is a partnership. You're listing your RV with us, and as soon as somebody stays in the RV, we want to make sure you're getting your payout efficiently and without any issues from us. So that is, it's something we can look into. I would imagine it would create a tax issue in terms of you'd need two documents. But again, I'm not an accountant, so I have no idea.
All righty. Well, John, the last question I have for you is, you mentioned this at the beginning, but it's RVshare's 10th anniversary this year. RVshare was founded back in 2013. So where do you see RVshare in the next 5 to 10 years? And what are you most excited about?
So first, I'd say, we're not fully looking back at 10 years yet, but looking back at 9 3/4 or whatever, I'm very, very proud of the fact that we've been able to send many millions of people on trips that they almost always love. I mean, 95% of the reviews we get are 5-star. That's not something that happens across travel. That's not something that happens across internet. So that's something that we as a company, and I hope all of you as owners who, are the ones providing this experience to renters are really proud of, because it's something we should be. It's great. Proud of the fact that we are now to the point where when people are sitting down at the table, Christmas or whenever around the holidays, that they're thinking about their upcoming travel for the next year, that people are considering RV trips, and people are considering RV trips in families that may not have ever considered an RV trip 5 years ago. So that's something that I think is really cool. As we look forward, I think it's a bit more of the same in that, right? We want to continue providing great memories to people, helping people who are buying an RV turn it into a second source of income, helping people who are buying a third and fourth RV start a small business that can be successful. We talked about these management companies that we expect to be kind of part of the marketplace going forward. I want to see all of that kind of economic growth come to bear, and I think it will, because I think at the core of any sort of valuable conversion experience online is a benefit of the bargain that's strong. And for us, taking an RV and turning it into a second source of income, or going out and spending time with your family on a trip, are things that are incredibly powerful in our lives. And I think, continuing to do that over the course of the next 10 years is the thing that's most exciting to me. That's really high level. Specifically, I think the way people use RVs will get different over time. You'll see more delivery. You'll see RVs used as temporary housing far more than they are today. So, at festivals, we talked about family reunions earlier. You think of workers who are in an area for a certain amount of time, using RVs as a place to stay for that period of time. I think we'll see all of those become bigger channels for us. I think you'll see us get better as a partner with the protection products we offer. We've started evolving that one and kind of made some great progress there, and we'll continue to. I think the conversion experience on the website will get better. I think we'll become more of a marketing partner to you in helping make recommendations on how to price your RV, on how to manage your RV and care for it over time. When we believe it that you should get a new RV because you would drive more bookings with it, and kind of getting to become a more developed partner in how we manage our relationship with you as owners. And I think those are the things that are top of my head, but I think there will be different use cases. I think the sophistication of the marketplace will go forward kind of by leaps and bounds in the next decade, and I'm excited for it.
Great. Well, thank you, John, so much for your time. This has been super insightful. We have recorded this session and it'll be up at our YouTube in the next 24 hours or so. So keep your eyes out on that if you'd like to watch anything back. And thank you for joining us for another owners meetup. We'll have more in the future, so stay tuned. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.